Radhaj. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Okay, so Sankalpa Kaumudi, we are reading, continuing reading from chapter 15, which is types of Sankalpas. And we very interesting section describing about different examples of different devotees and their different determinations. Even there's examples being given of determinations or where devotees were that quoted this site, where they learn from one's mistakes. Yeah, there's a quote here from Prabhupada: failures may not be detrimental, they may be pillars of success. You know, that's quite a common saying, even from a materialistic perspective. So it also applies in spiritual life. So we heard about Gopal Kumar and his determination. We heard about Kumari Muni, how he didn't manage to maintain his determination, but later on he became very determined. And we are on page 280, if you have your copy there. You can hear me clearly, and there's a bit of feedback coming from my end. So no, let me just check this out. So yeah, the connection's a little bit weak. Is my voice coming through clearly?
Very clear.
Okay, very clear. Mother Rajkishore said it very clearly. All right, let's begin then. So let me just give a quick context where we are as well. I'm just reading through just now. So Maharaj is given an example of aspects of the stage of bhava. And he gives 5 different considerations for someone at the stage of bhava, yeah, in order to progress on in that stage. And I just go over them quickly for those who don't have the book. One is practices that are related to that mood of one's devotion. Those that are unfavorable, activities which are not directly opposed to it. Then there's activities which are opposed to the development of a specific type of bhava. If you recall last week, so for instance, if one is aspiring, let's give it the opposite example. Say if one is aspiring to be a queen in Dwarka, or to be Krishna's associate in Dwarka, then at some stage in your spiritual life, you're not going to hear so much about Raj. You'll want to hear more about Dwarka. All right. Normally we give the example the other way. Okay. Those who are interested in going to Braj, which is the destination of Gaudiya Vaishnavas, they will, at some point in their sadhana, when it becomes more specific, they will not spend so much time hearing about Krishna's relationship with his queens in Dwarka. So having that blueprint, Maharaj is going to use these 3 aspects in looking at Sankalpas at the other stages of devotion. Yeah, kind of follow. Hopefully it'll be more clear as we read on, and we're stopped, so we're all clear on where we're going and what's happening. All right, so let's have some hands for reading. Can't see who's going to get a hand up first. And it's Sachari, just in the nick of time. She comes in first place, followed by Anupama second, and coming up in third place, Gurunamai. Hare Krishna. Okay, so Sachari, remember, you can begin at the bottom of 280, page 280, in this chapter.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. In this chapter, we shall use these same divisions to illustrate the 5 kinds of determination relating to the attainment of ecstatic devotion bhava. This means that the word bhava, unless otherwise specified, does not refer to the kind of service a raga bhakta aspires for, but rather to the stage of devotion following sadhana that is aspired for by both regulated and spontaneous devotees. Thus, our convention in the 5 varieties of bhava is slightly different from that of Chakravarti Thakur, since our emphasis.
The sound's
Sorry.
not so good, but
Since our
not much we can do about it, I don't think, at this stage. Carry on, mother. Oh.
Okay. Since our emphasis in this book is sadhana bhakti, our convention relates to the bhakti in general and to the stage of ecstatic devotion, whereas that of the acharya relates to a raga bhakta yearning for a mode of perfection, such as that of a cowherd boy. The variance in the two usages is in reference to the kind of devotion and the kind of attainment that devotion targets. It will be evident to the learned student that while sankalpas are integral part of sadhana, they serve the purpose of sadhana in different ways. The different limbs of bhakti serve in different functions for the attainment of bhakti, and so to the sankalpas inherent in that development. Thus, the determination regulated and spontaneous may be classified in 5 ways, and these will now be named and described in relation to how they serve the attainment of bhava. Bhavamaya, Bhavamaya Sankalpas. These are the determinations of a devotee that are full of the desire for ecstatic devotion, bhava. As he advances in Krishna consciousness, a devotee will feel a compelling urgency to direct all aspects of his sadhana to its perfection, to bhava bhakti. Those devotees who remain grounded in regulative devotion will be compelled to sadhana by its very definition, whereas devotees who are awakened to spontaneous devotion will be increasingly compelled by the kind of perfectional mode they covet. In either case, when a devotee is consumed by attaining bhava bhakti, his vows and resolve in sadhana are bhavamaya. Since most advanced regulated devotees will also realize the purpose of Lord Chaitanya's teachings, eventually they too will covet the path of raga and be drawn to its sweetness. If that transformation does not take place at the stage of sadhana, it will certainly do so at bhava. However, for an astute practitioner, spontaneous attraction will awaken at the stage of ruchi or asakti, thereby strengthening his resolve to the progress to ecstatic devotion. The spontaneity of sankalpas is proportional to the maturity of the devotee's greed. Therefore, it is often found that aspirations mostly by regulations are weaker and more difficult to sustain. However, the blessings of advanced association will intensify a devotee's eagerness as well as the strength of his vows. Nonetheless, whatever the strength, spontaneity, or accuracy of the sankalpas made by a devotee, when they are done to attain love for Krishna, sankalpas are said to be full maya of the desire for ecstatic devotion bhava.
Hey,
What does such a bhavamaya sankalpa look
stop there a
like?
minute. Robert, stop there. The sound, yeah, was it just me? The sound's a little bit not so good quality today.
Yeah, it's my as well, Murli Prabhu.
Okay.
It's same.
Yeah, its sound is very poor, Prabhu. I can't hear it.
It's
I
crackling
think it's
noise.
something to do with your connection, Shari, because we can hear everyone else okay. I mean, I could hear what you
Okay.
said, but it's difficult to concentrate on it. Exactly.
Sorry about that.
There's
It's
some
okay.
noise coming out. Yeah.
It's not your fault. Is it? So, any questions about that? A little bit technical. Maharaj has gone into describing, giving specifically about the stage of bhava. So in the beginning, let me just read this first paragraph again, so I'm clear, as clear as I can. But in this chapter, we shall use the same divisions to illustrate 5 kinds of determination relating to the attainment of bhava. This means that the word bhava, unless otherwise specified, does not refer to the kind of service a raga bhakta aspires for, but rather to the stage of devotion following sadhana that is aspired for both by regulated and spontaneous devotees. Okay, so Raga Bhakta is someone, as you know in our studies, is someone. This is a spontaneous devotee. Raga Bhakta. So,
What are the five
yeah,
sankalpas?
the five different aspects of sankalpas. One, I just read them again. Bhavamaya, that will be described next. But Bhavamaya is self-identification whose nature is in harmony with one's aspired for mood of eternal service. So one is identifying as or in the mood of a specific spontaneous devotee. He's not aspiring to be a specific personality, because that cannot be done, but they're identifying with that mood. For instance, they may be hearing about the gopis and their affection and love for Krishna, so they very much self-identify with that mood. Now, the details may not be known, but they are attracted to that mood, or the cowherd boys. So that's Bhava Maya. Yeah. Then Bhava Sambandhi. So Sambandhi means to link, as far as I know. So then they will take up different practices which enhance that mood. Different readings, different practices of sadhana, which will be in relationship and will enhance that mood. So Bhava Anukula, there may be other things which are indirectly favorable for it. So for instance, someone at the stage of Bhava, for instance, following Ekadashi is favorable for all moods of devotion. Right? So following the Ekadashi Vrata is not directly related to one's mood, but it is favorable. You follow?
Okay.
An example. Then activities of Bhava Aviruddha, further activities that are not opposed to it. There may be other activities. There's some activities that will be opposed to developing that mood, say, of the gopis. For instance, residing in Dwarka. Yeah. And then ones that are practices deemed detrimental for one's aspired for mood, which is much the same. Yeah, sorry, further activities that are not opposed to it. There may be activities which are neutral. They're neither opposed to it, nor that you're particularly favorable to it. It's like a neutral. It's neutral. So for instance, eating prashadam, it's kind of neutral. Yeah. It's not opposed to your specific bhava, and it may not be directly related to it. Yeah. And then those practices deemed detrimental for one's aspired for mood of service. Yeah. So for instance, if you're aspiring to obtain a mood in relationship to Krishna, you're not going to be watching mundane movies, which will create a bhava for material rasa. Kind of bit strange example. Yeah. All right. So
Yes, please.
does that help? So that's where we're going. That's anyone else has any insights or questions on this?
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Nitai Mata Shiva. Good
Sorry,
question. Please go ahead.
forgiveness for joining late. So that is why I'm going to request you something. Forgive me,
Yes.
everybody. Bhava Maya. Do you want to say these three things also examples, Prabhu? I joined late. That's the reason I'm asking this question.
Bhava Maya, that is going to be explained. Yeah, what does such a Bhava Maya Sankalpa look like? So Bhava Maya
A
is the
self-identification.
yeah,
whose name-
it's the mood. It's the self, it's identifying with a particular mood.
Hmm.
So then it's now we're going to look at each one of these which we just listed. Now we're going to read about these. So I think we have to go a little bit careful through this specific section. Perhaps we'll stop more often and so we can understand what's being said. Yeah.
Can I ask this one? Okay, I'm just saying, I'm just taking the example of Mother Chandravali. She is so much deciding to dress the deities. Oh, different, so much. She has that total mood of dressing up.
Yeah.
So, so that is her nature. Is that right, Prabhu?
You could look at it like that. That's overall mood. And let's say you're looking at devotee maybe be particularly attracted to a specific type of service. I think she likes cooking as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
of course, yes. Yeah, this is
Likes
one thing.
cooking for the deities, likes so that's mood, but specifically we're looking at here moods which are directly in relationship to the relationships in Vrindavan. But yeah, we could give
Okay,
those.
so if she develops one spoiled for mood of eternal service, that would be good. I'm just taking this as an example. Mother must be having a different desire or anything. What I'm just, this is just hypothetically, I'm just thinking.
Yeah,
like
so that could be, for instance, if one is, one identifies oneself with a servant, say a servant of gopis, then what do? The gopis, they make garlands. So that would
Yeah.
be favorable. So someone would learn to make garlands because that's their cherished, that's their aspired for savor. So then they will perfect that. They will very much perfect that service. And like Mother Kalangana, some say she perfected making sweets. So she very much identified herself as being Krishna's sweet maker. So of course we can speculate that that's what she's doing in the spiritual world. Maybe, maybe not, but
Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's, because she said Krishna, no, she wants Mahaprabhu.
Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, yeah, all right. So making sweets for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Perhaps let's read on a bit and perhaps it become more clear as we read on for me also, all right? So
Prabhu, can I just tell me the page? I've lost the page.
yeah, we're on 282. Page 282.
Thank you.
At the top. So I'll ask Anupama Mother, if you could read from the top there, what does such Bhavamaya Sankalpa look like? Bhavamaya.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare
Okay.
Krishna.
Okay. Did you read all that from 281 or not? Oh, okay, I'll start from here.
Did we? Let's check. So have I made a mistake here?
I thought there was I think we needed to start from Bhavamaya Sankalpas, no?
Okay,
From
good.
there?
Right. Yeah, we can go from there. Sorry, that's my mistake.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Bhavamaya Sankalpas. These are the determinations of a devotee that are full of the desire for aesthetic devotion, bhav. As he advances in Krishna consciousness, a devotee will feel a compelling urgency to direct all aspects of his sadhana to its perfection, to bhava bhakti. Those devotees who remain grounded in regulative devotion will be compelled to sadhana by its very definition, whereas devotees who are awakened to spontaneous devotion will be increasingly compelled by the kind of perfectional mood they covet. In either case, when a devotee is consumed by attaining bhava bhakti, his vows and resolve in sadhana are bhavamaya.
Okay, so you got that. You just got that. So Maharaj has given an example of this Bhavamaya in relationship to Vaidhi, which means they're very much, their bhava, their mood is very much to follow the directions of scripture. And that's what we need. That's kind of more relevant to us. Yeah. Very much desirous of reading, very much desirous of chanting one's round with attentiveness, very much desiring of listening to lectures, you know, but you're all here now reading this because you have a bhava maya. You have a bhava for hearing about the science of Krishna consciousness. Yeah. So with that bhava, with that sankalpa, you are hearing. So that Maharaj gave an example there of Heidi, and then he gives example in relation to spontaneous devotion. Yeah. Compelled by a specific mood of devotion in Vrindavan. Yeah. All right. Yeah, can continue.
Okay. Since most advanced regulative devotees will also realize the purpose of Lord Chaitanya's teachings, eventually they too will cover the path of raga and be drawn to its sweetness. If that transformation does not take place at the stage of sadhana, it will certainly do so at bhav. However, for an astute practitioner, spontaneous attraction will awaken at the stages of ruchi or asakti, thereby strengthening his resolve to progress to ecstatic devotion.
Okay, perhaps let's just pause there as well. Let's just try and unpack this a bit. And we have described this before. So there's two paths towards perfection. One is through the practice of sadhana, and one is by the practice of raganuga sadhana. Yeah. Now, someone who's practicing, this is from Nectar Devotion, someone who's practicing raganuga sadhana, they will take up the purposeful hearing of Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan. Yeah. Now, the other devotee practicing Vaidhi sadhana may be quite content, quite absorbed in just spreading the mission of Krishna consciousness and following very sincerely. They may not specifically specify their hearing about Raj. Yeah. Now, when they, through their ardent, sincere practice, which they will come to the stage of bhava through sadhana, they will be naturally as much drawn to the sweetness of Vrindavan. Through their purity of heart, they will become attracted. Yeah. And then Maharaj then speaks about someone who's practicing however, for an astute practitioner, spontaneous attraction will awaken at the stages of ruchi or shakti. So this is the devotee who's practicing, as far as I can read here, he's practicing raganuga sadhana. So the taste for that, and then there will be a strong attraction. Any questions on that? Okay, let's read on. Perhaps read a couple more paragraphs.
Okay. The spontaneity of sankalpas is proportional to the maturity of a devotee's greed. Therefore, it is often found that aspirations driven mostly by regulation are weaker and more difficult to sustain. However, the blessings of advanced association will intensify a devotee's eagerness as well as the strength of his vows. Nonetheless, whatever the strength, spontaneity, or accuracy of sankalpas made by a devotee when they are done to attain love of Krishna, sankalpas are said to be full, maya of the desire for aesthetic devotion, bhav. What does such a bhava maya sankalpa look like? It depends on the kind of devotion by which one is inspired. Bhava maya sankalpa is when a devotee says, either I understand that the goal of sadhana is bhava bhakti, and that is the sole purpose of my life, or my only desire is to attain ascetic devotion, bhava bhakti, so that I may follow that specific Vijvasi and serve him like him or her.
So the first one is Vaidhi, the second one is spontaneous, okay?
Okay. The former is an example of sankalpa in regulative devotion, the latter an example in spontaneous devotion. The second kind of determinations are the ingredient causes of love, bhava sambandhi sankalpa. These are vows that are related to bhav. A devotee's determinations to attain prema by chanting the Mahamantra, reading scriptures, and remembering Krishna are of the nature of bhava sambandhi. And as we know, these sankalpas may be inspired either by dedication to regulations or by natural attraction.
Okay,
In
so
the way that
so these sorry, keep jumping in. Just
no, that's fine.
so that these activities are both good and favorable for both. Someone who's doing Vaidhi sadhana and the bhava sadhana, or someone who's doing spontaneous sadhana. These activities are favorable for both. Okay, like yeah.
In the way that bhavamaya sankalpa is the very substance of aesthetic devotion, bhava sambandhi sankalpa is that impetus by which it is realized. The vows that the devotee takes shape the development of devotion leading to bhav. They begin with, I will chant 16 rounds of Maha Mantra daily, or I will read Srimad Bhagavatam 1 hour a day. Queen Kunti lists not only hearing, chanting, and remembering Krishna's pastimes as activities leading to perfection, but also enabling others to do so. This is the mood of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Sankirtana movement, in which introducing others to the process of Krishna consciousness is an essential part of sadhana. A devotee who throughout his life makes progressive vows both for his own benefit and for the benefit of others certainly becomes a recipient of Krishna's special grace. The Pandavas' mother said, O Krishna, those who continuously hear, chant, and repeat your transcendental activities or take pleasure in others doing so certainly see your lotus feet, which alone can stop the repetition of birth and death. Other vows that devotees must undertake to enable devotional success are following Akadashi fast, observing the festivities on Janmashtami day, and celebrating the month of Kartika. At this point, a question may arise. Why are acts like fasting or offering lamps to Lord Damodara the causes of attaining bhav? The answer is seen in the two aspects to these observances. Not eating on Akadashi for the pleasure of the Lord is not in itself a cause of bhav, but is instrumental or favorable for that attainment. The reasons to restrict eating on Ekadashi is to engage in more Nam Sankirtan and other devotions. But doing Nam Sankirtan when one is fasting Ekadashi is an ingredient cause of bhav. In the above mentioned vows, both instrumental and ingrediential factors are observed. For example, the Janmashtami festival leads to both fasting and remembrance of Krishna. Therefore, because of the presence of Samarna, Janmashtami is considered to be Bhava Sambandhi. And offering a lamp to Lord Damodar is instrument to attaining Bhav, while singing Shri Damodar Akshat is ingredient cause of Bhav. Subsequent to these vows that are essential for the attainment of ecstasy are Bhav Anukula Sankalpas.
Okay. Do we follow that? I was just expanding again on this. So for someone at stage of bhava, then they're not going to stop worshipping Lord Damodar. They're gonna that will enhance their specific mood. Yes, ingredient cause of bhava, and also because Janmashtami, the festival itself, is all about smaran of Krishna, so that will enhance their specific ecstatic mood. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Go on.
Subsequent to those vows that are essential for the attainment of ecstasy, abhav anukula sankalpas. These sankalpas are that are favorable to bhav. These include the vow to mark the body with gopi chandan, to regularly circumambulate Tulsi Devi, and to wear neck beads. A neophyte devotee sometimes neglects these basic practices, considering them external to the development of devotion. However, like the instrumental austerities of Ekadashi, these commitments also have a material or ingredential penitential aspect. For example, in marking the body with tilak, a devotee simultaneously pronounces the different names of Lord Krishna and thus remembers him. In this way, a devotee does a kind of Nam Sankirtan. This activity that is essential for the development of bhav. The same can be said of circumambulating Tulsi Devi, during which devotees sing the glories of Krishna's dear associate. Thus, the Vaishnava attending to the science of devotion does not fail to make these vows. At this stage, it is important to note that taking vows to serve Vaishnavas has the nature of the three aforementioned Sankalpas. When one vow, sorry, shall I stop? Oh,
No, go on.
when one,
As you're
okay.
reading, this is trying to, as you're reading, it's very, very technical, isn't it? I'm trying to understand it myself.
Yes, it is. I can't make sense of it myself.
Hare Krishna. I'm
Yes,
stuck.
Nitya Mata.
I am stuck,
Can you
Prabhu.
help us explain what's going on here?
No, I'm stuck already. I'm stuck. And that's why I was thinking to stop.
Right, let's try. Yeah, okay, let's let's try.
Can we go back a bit, Prabhu, and you can explain a little bit, because I'm also fairly lost here. I
Okay,
don't
okay.
quite
All right, let's
understand what's happening here.
yeah. All right, let's try and break this down.
Sorry.
No
Yeah.
problem. No problem.
Sorry.
I'm good for myself as
Nothing
well.
but the truth.
There's, like within the day, say within the morning program, the different activities that we do, or even preparing for the morning program, like Marge speaks about Gopi Chand putting on tilak. We circumambulate Tulsi, and we wear neck beads. These are all, obviously, they're favorable for the cultivation of sadhana, but they are also not opposed to and very much favorable of one whose mood is very much specifically attracted to the resonance of Raj. Yeah. So, for instance, Marge brought about, we have to, when we put on tilak, on Keshava, on Narayana, Madhavayam, Govindam, Vishnavena, Madhusudana, Trikram, etc. This is required in sadhana, but it's relished by a devotee at the stage of bhava, because it's the different names of the Lord. So that is Nam Sankirtan. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So it's Nam Sankirtan. So it's nourishing the sadhana bhakta, and it's also nourishing the bhava bhakta. Yeah. So at this stage, the practices that are mentioned is favorable for both the Vaidhi sadhana and the Raganuga. Someone's practicing Raganuga sadhana or Raga. Yeah. They will not desist from doing these activities. Later on, I think Marge will then bring up things which are more specific, which is just done by the devotee at the stage of Raga and not done by the devotees at the stage of sadhana. At this stage, he's giving examples of things that are common to both practitioners. And you can see how Prabhupada expertly gave us a program which is favorable for everyone, the sadhana bhaktas, the bhava bhaktas, and ultimately the prema bhaktas. Yeah, for instance.
Yes.
Yeah.
For instance,
Prabhu.
just for instance, the prayer for Tulsi Devi is very good for the sadhaka, and also very right in the mood of someone who's advanced as well, because you're praying to be a maidservant of the gopis. Then, for instance, Jaya Radha Mahadeva, which even some of Prabhupada's godbrothers were kind of surprised. I think they offered, was a little bit critical of Prabhupada introducing Jaya Radha Madhava before Srimad Bhagavatam class, because that is a Raganuga meditation, very advanced. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari has Gopi Bhava, So Prabhupada, in giving us what he has given us, the morning program, it can nourish everyone. So that's as far as I can understand that Maharaj is just giving these common practices. yeah, which are favorable for both types of devotees. Yes, so I hope that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, that makes sense.
But have you read this one? This Bhava and Bhava Maya related to Bhava Sambandhi. I don't understand this too, Prabhu.
Where are you reading from, Mother?
Uh,
Which
It's a
page?
page.
284, the last para.
The last paragraph.
Yes, of 284.
Okay. Did we read that yet? We did.
We haven't read that yet.
No, we haven't read that yet. Prabhu.
Okay,
really?
let's just wait till we get there, Mother. Let's just wait till we get there.
Sorry.
I think we're just going to read that now. It's
Okay.
coming up. So let's just read through it and read past it so I can get some context.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought we read it. I
Actually,
lost.
perhaps what we'll do is this chapter finishes at the next page. So let's just finish this chapter, and then we'll go back and try and clarify and try and
Okay. Yeah.
understand. Okay.
Good. Yeah.
So who was reading Anupama, wasn't it?
Shall I carry on, Prabhu?
Perhaps Mother Kunamai,
Yeah.
you can just take us to the end of this chapter.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Prabhu.
Yeah. I think we're at this stage. It is important.
At this stage, it is important to note that taking vows to serve Vaishnavas has the nature of three aforementioned sankalpas. When one vows to serve the spiritual master and predecessor acharyas by both following their instructions and by serving their mission, one's determinations are full of bhavamaya, related to bhav sambandhi, and favorable for bhav anukula.
I think it's Mother Kunamai, don't mind me saying, but it's actually pronounced Bhava. Bhava. You say bow. Bhava. Yeah.
Bhava.
Yeah.
And favorable for bhava anukula. The same can be said for any vow that serves pure Vaishnavas undertaken throughout the course of Krishna consciousness. They are beneficial for ecstatic devotion in all ways. The fourth type of vows for devotion are those that have little direct relation to attaining love. Bhava aviruddha sankalpa. Those vows that are neither favorable nor harmful, so may be said to be neutral. Making a vow to offer respect to brahmanas or cows is of the nature of bhava aviruddha sankalpa.
So neutral, okay? Neutral. Yeah, go on.
Once again, when these acts are accompanied by remembrance of glorification of the Lord, they gain more substance. The fifth classification of vows is called bhava viruddha sankalpas. Certain vows of devotion that are unfavorable for attaining bhava. The reader may wonder, how can a determination in bhakti be detrimental to one's goals? In the initial stages of devotion, a Vaishnav may make vows to meditate on Lord Narayan, Krishna's various incarnations or Dwaka associates. However, for the attainment of Raja Prema, the continuation of these vows becomes counterproductive in that they direct a practitioner to another goal. For this reason, saints explain that vows that are favorable at an initial stage of devotion may become unfavorable at a later stage. With the words, Tvakta Lakshmipati Ratim, Raghunath Das Goswami advises that under the guidance of the spiritual master, this kind of vows for bhakti may be given up. Give up the prostitutes of friendship with non-devotees, prostitutes who will steal the treasure of your heart. Do not listen to the words of the tigress of impersonal liberation which devours everyone. Give up the attraction for Lord Narayan, which leads to the world of Vaikuntha, or mind. In Vraj worship, Radha Krishna, two philanthropists who give away the jewel of pure love. In summarizing this chapter, it is worth repeating that a devotee's vows along the path of sadhana bhakti fall into one of the 5 categories. As a devotee progresses in Krishna consciousness, he may evaluate the relevance
Yeah.
of new determination or of his sankalpas overall. With these 5 classifications, we repeat these 5 gradings of sankalpas. Bhavamaya, the determinations that are full of desire for ecstatic devotion, bhava. Bhava sambandhi, determinations that are ingredient causes of bhava. Bhava ankula, determinations that are instrumental or favorable for bhava. Bhava aviruddha, further determinations that are not opposed to bhava, but are neutral to the accomplishment. Bhava virud, sankalpas that are detrimental to attaining ecstatic devotion. We are hopeful that devotees become acquainted with these principles of devotion and review the relevance of their determinations in light of the 5 bhavas.
Okay. So I just going to give an example where I was just reflecting back on different sankalpas that I've made over time. So it might help us to understand a bit. I remember when I was on traveling Sankirtan, this must have been in 1993, 94, like that. There was 3 of us, 4 of us sometimes traveling in a van. So it was brahmacharis. I still am a brahmachari. And we was young. I was 24, 25 at that time. And we made Sankalpa together in the back of the van. And that was, we would stay traveling in the van for the rest of our lives. We were so excited about it that we made vow to live in the van for the rest of our lives and wouldn't.
What happened now, Muli Prabhu?
Well, then I had to change my Sankalpa. I had to change. So then it was a youthful Sankalpa. But it was good for me at the time. It was good for us at the time because it gave us a particular determination and it gave us a particular resolve and an enthusiasm for actually traveling. We was completely fired up about it, For us, even I dare to say, for us on traveling Sankirtan, being at the temple was a maya. Because there's too much distraction at the temple, So, but then I had to adjust that. That was a sankalpa I made, which was favorable. But it didn't turn out to be favorable for my further spiritual development, because then I started doing pujari service, and that was very much what I needed to do at a particular stage in my spiritual life, So I adjusted that. That was a particular sankalpa, which I adjusted. And there's other sankalpas I've made as well, which I've had to adjust. Like I made a sankalpa to learn every verse in Bhagavad Gita. But that was starting to take away my time for other reading and study. So I was enthusiastic about it, but I've had to adjust that somewhat. You get the idea? So similarly, you probably yourselves personally, you may have made some of you may have made vows to chant. I mean, that's why we have to be careful when we do take up vows or sankalpas. Of course, some of them we will adjust in time, but especially, I guess, on Kartik, for instance, there's certain vows we may make to chant a certain amount of rounds, So in this way, these type of determinations throughout our spiritual progress, they will change, as Maharaj was saying, Yeah, so someone's Sankalpa may be to learn by heart every verse in the Gopi Gita, you know, part of the Srimad Bhagavatam, because that will nourish their particular attraction. But that's not the type of Sankalpa you're going to make in the beginning of your spiritual life. Yeah, those type of Sankalpas which are more specifically aimed at developing specific mood of attraction. So you may make that particular, or you may make a particular Sankalpa. So going back a bit, you may make, Marge mentioned it also about serving Vaishnavas. That's always favorable at all times for all types of Sankalpas and for all types of determinations. You cannot go wrong by serving the spiritual master and serving the Vaishnavas. That will nourish everyone at every stage of their devotion. Yeah. So that, I don't know if that helped. There's a personal example. I'm sure you can also relate to your own specific determination vows that you had throughout your spiritual life. And sometimes what you made a vow to do in the beginning may not be no longer relevant to you. So you may have to adjust it. But the overall point that Marge is making in this presentation is that we should always be looking to make and adjusting or looking to make different sankalpas to take us to different stages of devotion. Yeah, we should be internally, or we should be active in that way to identify what can I do to increase my particular mood of attraction, which may be there, you know. So then you're going to read certain books. And now these reading certain books, as we read in Sankalpa in Sudha Bhakti Chintamani, this is all under guidance of one's spiritual master, Shiksha or Diksha Gurus. Yeah. It's quite advanced when you're going to read about specified. For us, generally, we're going to read and hear about all of Krishna's pastimes. Anyway, is that, I'm going off a tangent a little bit here, but does that help understand what's being presented here? Any questions about that?
Prabhu, you did mention that you changed your sankalpas, and even you have to change many times to make sure that it's working for you. That is like you can really practically okay. Is that okay? This applies to me. You do it and then you fail and think, oh no, this is not the right one. So how do you make that?
Well, hopefully this study is going to help us
Hmm.
to really be able to identify sankalpas which are good for our specific stage, which are favorable for us, you know. As we read through this, it's going to continue. The next chapter is going to give examples of sankalpas. So hopefully this study is going to help us to help us to understand what is a practical. It should be practical. It should be something which generally it should be something which is good if it can stretch us a little bit, but not stretch us too much, where if we don't achieve it, then we won't feel very inspired. Like for instance, like book distributors. I remember, when I was doing book distribution, then you have to be careful what, you know, I'm going to distribute 100 big books today. I'm not coming back to have done 100 big books. Now, for me, who generally does about 6 big books a day, that's not a very intelligent sankalpa. You know, it just makes me depressed. All right, so I do 6 books a day. I do 8 books a day. I do 8 big books a day. Let me do 10. Let me do 10 books, you know. All right, so you're chanting 16 rounds a day. From tomorrow, I'm going to chant 64 rounds a day. You find you'll just be at war. It'd be a war, and you could get, you know, it may not be very encouraging for you. Okay, so I want to get to 64. Okay, why don't you give it a year or so? Why don't you start with 20 rounds before you go to 64, and just get settled in that and do what else you have to do in a day. So gradually you can stretch. It's good to stretch, but not and take up unrealistic determinations or sankalpas. I mean, the ultimate sankalpa we have ultimately is to go back to Godhead. But Maharaj is saying here is that we have to break things down. We have to break it down to step-by-step sankalpas to actually get there. It's like unrealistic for us. I want to go back to Godhead. All right. But there's other sankalpas we need to make before we perhaps can actually realistically do that. So that's why this book is called Sankalpa Kaumudi. That's the whole presentation of it. Specifically, Maharaj is speaking about sankalpas for sadhana in actually coming to bhava, which is very relevant to us because we're all sadhana bhaktas and we want to come to the stage of bhava. There's sadhana, bhava, and prema. Okay, I think someone was asking something and I kept on speaking. Any questions on that or comments? If not, we can break into, not groups, it's okay. We can break into chapter 16. Yeah. So perhaps I'll have a little read. That's page 289. So hopefully now I can get a little bit less technical here. I think different examples will now be given. All right. So we begin this chapter by citing examples of sankalpas from Srimad Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita. The best examples of determinations are those shown by the Lord and his associates, for they fully reveal the components that constitute sankalpas. At the twilight of Krishna's descent to earth, all demons, along with their military might and divisions of soldiers, had been destroyed. Only Krishna's own family, the Yadavas, were left as the greatest power in Yudhishthira Maharaj's empire. However,
Sorry to interrupt you.
No problem,
You
go ahead.
said, we are going to go back and speak again today after finishing this chapter. That's what you mentioned.
Well, that's what I did try to summarize it just
No, Prabhu, that
then.
wasn't enough.
Huh?
That wasn't enough, Prabhu. I thought you were going to go back and discuss. That's only 5 minutes.
Well, I suggest we go on. What I suggest, Malvinitai Mata, I think if you perhaps read it in your own time, go over it back, and if there's something specific that you want to understand more clearly, you can perhaps bring up next week.
Okay. I really didn't understand these two words. What
No,
is
because Nitya Mata, you were asking the difference between the various bhavas, bhava maya, bhava sambandhi, bhava anukula, and all that
Okay.
when we started. But at the end, Maharaj has described each definition.
everything?
So that is covered. Your question is covered. So we moved on to the next chapter.
Is that okay, Nitai Mata?
No, but this one, I asked this in the way that the Bhava Maya Sankalpa and Bhava Sambandhi Sankalpa.
Okay, she's
So-
determined. Let's try and help Mother Nitai Mata. Which page are you reading from, Mother?
This is 282.
282. Okay, please bear with us, everyone. This
Please.
is good for all of us.
It is just 5 minutes. I'm not taking long. This is
nearly
True.
7 o'clock.
Yeah, it's nearly 7 o'clock. We've got 5. Right.
Just
What we
5
do, Mother, let's come back next week on this. All right? Let's give it a week to sink in. Let's give it a week to digest. And let's come back next week. And we can clarify that, yeah?
Okay.
I want to get a little inroads into this chapter to give us a bit more clarification as well.
Okay.
Hope that's okay. All right. But
Thank
very
you.
good for your inquisitive mind wanting to understand. Very good. Okay. At the twilight of Krishna's descent to earth, all demons, along with their military might and divisions of soldiers, had been destroyed. Only Krishna's own family, the Yadavas, were left as the greatest power in Yudhishthira Maharaj's empire. However, the unchecked power of Krishna's kin was a cause of concern for the Lord, for no force could defeat them, the sole military burden on the planet, Krishna thought. If they turn against each other and, like a fire created from the friction of bamboo in a grove, annihilate each other, then my purpose will be achieved and I can return to my abode. Sukadeva Goswami then describes Krishna's Sankalpa to initiate a quarrel between the others. But dear King Parikshit, when the Supreme Almighty Lord, whose desire always comes to pass, had thus made up his mind, he withdrew his own family on the pretext of a curse spoken by an assembly of Brahmanas. This is an example of the satya-sankalpa Isvara, the Lord of absolute determination, making a sankalpa. Here we note that Krishna's sankalpa has a clear goal to get to the yadus, a clear goal that the means to attain it, create an argument, create a fratricide, and a knowledge where that goal leads to peace on earth. Okay, so this is going to be a good 3 points to keep in mind when making sankalpas. Should be a goal, what's your means to attain it, and the results which will come from it. Yeah. A similar sankalpa was made by Krishna sometime later when he decided to descend as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in order to better comprehend Radha's love. As the source of all rasa, Krishna could not understand how Sri Radha was able to give him endless pleasure, what the qualities in him were that gave her pleasure, or what the actual bliss was that she savored from their exchange. For these reasons, Krishna decided to appear on earth again, but this time with a different form and mood. Therefore, assuming Srimati Radharani's sentiments and bodily complexion, I shall descend, to fulfill these 3 desires. So 3 specific sankalpas or desires. Again, we see that this sankalpa has all 3 determining attributes, the same. There's a goal, there's a means to attain it, and the results of it. Yeah. Krishna is very consistent. In the preface, we mentioned that this book took inspiration from Sanatana Goswami's Brihat Bhagavatamrita. Therein, we were particularly stirred by Gopal-Kumar's repeated determinations to attain a higher and higher perfection through the medium of his Gopal mantra. Yet the success of the young boy's aspirations were not solely his own. The mantra too would be the instrument for his success. On their second meeting, his spiritual masters thus encouraged Gopal to chant attentively, saying Yat Yat Sankalpa Bho Vatsa Nijam Mantram Jipasyasi. Whatever you desire, Sankalpa, while chanting your mantra, by its power you will fully achieve. And so it was. Until this stage in his journey, Gopal chanting had transformed his life and made him king of a southern city without his being aware of it. But after meeting his guru in Puri, he understood the power of his mantra. By chanting with increased and focused determinations, he became king of Puri. Then an Indra in heaven, a member of the Prajapatis in Mahaloka, an associate of the Kumaras in Tapaloka, a Brahma in Satyaloka, a visitor to the Brahmajyoti, a guest of the various Vaikuntha regions, and finally a brother to Sridham in Goloka Vrindavan. Readers may lose their breath reading the sentence above. We too were breathless, contemplating the power of Gopal determined chanting, which pointed to an urgency in our personal chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra and other Diksha mantras. Yeah. So perhaps I'll just finish on this point. So there should be a particular resolve. This will come up later during our chanting. We're not just rattling off the names of the mantra for the sake of it. There's something that we want to achieve. Yeah, and we should carry that mood into our chanting. And it's something we have to kind of reapply ourselves to, because we chant every day, and we can get quite familiar with it, where it becomes, in one sense, quite mechanical, with not much emotion or desire which accompanies it. I'm sure we've all experienced this to one degree or another. But when we're chanting and we're putting our mind into what the explanation of Maha Mantra is, we're begging for Krishna's service, or we're begging to love Krishna, then that is a different quality of chanting. So this was Gopal Kumar. When he was chanting a mantra, it was accompanied by an internal aspiration to actually realize the deity of the mantra. It wasn't just words he was saying, because once he's been given a mantra, but he had feeling in it. That's why Maharaj, this book speaks about, when the mood of, in the sense of bhava, not the stage of bhava, but our activities should be heartfelt. So when we're chanting, we should have in mind what the mantra is saying. My Lord, please engage me in your service. My Lord, please engage me in your service. And we have to come back to that, and we may not be able to carry it through our whole japa. So it's good to revisit it and remind ourselves of the actual mantra and why we're chanting and what we're aspiring for. Yeah. And then yayatam papadyante tam tataiva bhajamayaham. Then Krishna will fulfill that specific desire. But we have to be, you understand, we have to be consciously desiring love of God.
And determination as well.
And determination, yeah. All right. So let's perhaps pause there then for this week. And so meditate on that, Nimai Mata, to have a read back, and we can revisit your query if it's still there next week, okay? Unless you've got some revelation and it's all become clear. And then you can tell us. All right, so thank you everyone for joining us. Hare Krishna. Tomorrow is Sankalpa, is Sudha Bhakti Tamani questions, I think. So looking forward to that. So hope everyone has a wonderful rest of the evening. And Hare Krishna. Thank you for joining us.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna.
Holy Prabhu.
So,
Jai.